Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to DDP. I'm your instructor, Mr. Schwartz, and in today's lesson, you're going to be introduced to the elements and principles of design. You're then going to make an artwork based on them. Let's get started. Okay, so what are the elements? The elements of art are basically, like I said, the atoms, the building blocks. They're all of the different things that we use to make art. There's color, line, shape, form, space, texture, value. Maybe I mentioned color already. I'll mention it again. It's pretty important. But they're all related in different ways, and how they're placed is basically how you make an artwork. So the difference between a line and a shape, if you didn't know, is that a line is open and a shape is closed, meaning end to end they are touching, and it's an enclosed space. The difference between a shape and a form is that a shape has no value and a form does. Values in art are the lights and darks, the whole range of lights and darks between white and black. When that is applied to a shape in a way that there's a light source, it creates a 3D form. Space is about positive and negative space, and what is the central subject and what is the background area to that. We'll get into that in a further lesson. And color, we'll get into that as well in a further lesson. But these are all of the things that artists play with and utilize in order to create art. The principles of design are the ways that the elements are organized in a way that creates a composition. And the aim of the principles is to utilize the elements to create a well-balanced, well-placed, and harmonious composition. A composition is how all the elements are placed on a picture. Okay, so the principles of design are balance. Whoa, lost it there. Hold on. Okay, so the principles of design are balance, unity, variety, proportion, emphasis, pattern, and movement. Now, balance is something that is very important in an artwork. When you're placing different elements in your artwork, you want to make sure that they're placed in a way that is pleasing to the viewer. So they can't just be all crammed in a corner, unless that's what you're going for. But usually a well-balanced composition means that things are placed on the picture plane in an organized way that the viewer's eye can follow logically throughout the whole picture. Unity is how all the elements come together in a harmonious way. And that's ultimately the goal in whatever kind of artwork you're making. Even if you're trying to create a chaotic scene within an artwork, you should still try to create a well balanced and unified composition. Variety. Variety can be, the difference between different colors, different sizes of shapes, different kinds of shapes, different sizes, small to big. It's how these things together look and what they represent. So the contrast found within an artwork says a lot about each thing individually. Proportion. Proportion is how big something is in relation to something else. So it makes it symbolically in an artwork how big or small something is says a lot about what the artist is trying to say about that in their own artwork. So proportion is a tool that can be used to speak and communicate. Emphasis is where the viewer's eye goes directly to first. So this could be the central subject. The emphasis of an artwork can be attained through it being more detailed, have more shadows, it might be larger, it might be more colorful. Whatever it is that makes it the center of the composition and attracts the viewer's eye to it is the emphasis. Pattern. Pattern is another tool. We're working with shapes, we're working with lines, and all kinds of colors. So how are they organized? Patterns are merely shapes repeating. So it can be used in a handy way to draw the viewer's eye in. So, and movement. Movement is very important. Movement is how the viewer's eye moves from one element to another. When you're thinking about the composition and where to place your elements, you want to take into consideration where the viewer's eye starts, where it goes next, and where it ends up, and how it travels around the whole artwork. So even though a artwork is usually static, it's a still thing, looking at, you know, a piece of paper or a canvas, there can be movement within the artwork, and there's different ways to attain that. So the principles of design, I see it as suggestions of how to organize the elements and to maximizing the efforts to communicate in your artwork. So how to best communicate, if that makes any sense. Okay, so moving on. This is your first assignment, okay? So what you're gonna be asked to do, I'll just read the aim, it'll sum it up. You're going to create a unified and harmonious artwork using at least 4 elements combined with at least 4 principles. This will be based on a 1 by 1 inch grid. Okay, so you're gonna choose any 4 elements. It could be line, color, shape, form, whatever it is. And you're gonna choose 3 principles: pattern, emphasis, balance. And you're going to think about how you're going to utilize them. The 1 by 1 inch grid is a tool that's gonna be used to help you place these various elements in a pleasing and well-balanced composition. So you don't have to end up with the grid, but it's a starting point and a good tool. You will need a ruler for this. You will need to start out with square paper. So you could take a regular piece of typing paper and you can make the longest side the same size as the shortest side. However you wish, but the starting size needs to be at least 8 by 8 inches. And yeah, so the 1 inch by 1 inch grid will be equal. You need to have a pencil. You need to have a Sharpie, pen, or ink of some kind. So when you're doing your final drawing, you'll be asked to outline all of the important lines with ink and to erase everything else, including the grid. After your final drawing is made, inked, and all of the construction lines in the grid are erased, you're going to make it fully colored. But only if color is your element. So I'm going to back up there. Let's just say one of the element, you don't choose color as your element. It needs to be then be fully shaded, okay, with value. So one of these will have to use value or color. Okay, so how you're going to be graded is neatness and effort. It's going to be deadline met. Whether there's 4 elements and 4 principles that are present, it does need to be obvious. And even if it's not completely obvious, it should be well stated and documented in the accompanying writing that's going to be going along with this. So that's 2 to 6 sentences explanation of which elements you chose, which principles you chose, and how you approach the composition and how you what your process was, okay? So this will get you thinking about your process, what it is, and how to write it down, which is an important step for an artist. Okay, so the instructions, just go over them yourself. They basically say what I just told you. Moving on. Okay, so your artwork can be abstract or representational. Representational means that it looks as close to something like in the real world as possible, or even if it's not a very realistic representational, it could still be representational, just using colors and shape. But if it's abstract or representational, it still needs to have a pleasing composition, and you still need to think about where things are placed. If we're going to use this as an example, there's a lot of variety in this. There's a lot of colors. There's a lot of different sizes, but there's also a lot of similarities. There's a lot of repetition in the types of shape. There's all circles, mostly circles. And the way that they're placed is creates movement with your eye. It starts at a certain place. Humans read from left to right, top to bottom. So this starts in a place and the viewer's eye travels to the right, down, and around the composition. So even though it's abstract, it's not thrown together in a haphazard way. There's thought put into the placement of the elements. I want to ask you to do the same thing. So why use a grid? As I stated, a grid is a tool for you to help place the elements in a conscientious way. A grid has a horizontal and vertical middle line, which means that it creates 4 quadrants. And this is a handy way to break up space. And yeah, so you're going to use it and then you're going to erase it once you have your final drawing. So that's everything you need to know about this assignment. I can't wait to see what you come up with. If you have any further questions, you can reach me at office hours. And until then, I'll see you at the next video. Take care.